What if I told you that the reason you haven't lost the fat isn't in your belly or your thighs or your metabolism, but in your brain? Let that sink in. Because for years, decades, we've been taught to chase the surface. Run harder, eat less, sweat more, blame your genetics, curse your willpower, starve your body, hate your reflection. But no one told you the truth. Fat loss is not a battle of calories. It's not a war against your body. It's a war inside your mind, a war against your old patterns, your unconscious beliefs, your emotional baggage, and the habits wired deep into the architecture of your brain. You don't have a fat problem. You have a thought problem. You have a pattern problem. You have a nervous system stuck in survival mode, hijacking your goals with stress, cravings, self-sabotage, and shame. But today, we stop chasing symptoms. Today, we stop punishing the body for the brain's confusion. Because when you rewire the brain, you don't just lose weight. You lose fear, you lose excuses, you lose every story that ever told you this is just who I am. This isn't about diets, it's about identity. It's about rewiring your neural pathways so discipline becomes your default. So your body finally becomes the mirror of a mind set free. Fat loss doesn't start in the gym. It doesn't start in the kitchen. It starts in the only place powerful enough to change everything, your brain. Let's begin. That ache in your gut, that gnawing sensation in the middle of the night, it feels physical. It feels like your body needs something. Salt, sugar, crunch, comfort. But let's stop and ask a deeper question. Is that really your stomach speaking? Or is that the voice of your brain, disguised as hunger, demanding relief from something it doesn't know how to name? We've been taught to listen to our bodies when it comes to fat loss. But here's the truth. Most of what you think is your body talking is actually your brain, screaming through cravings, whispering through impulses, sabotaging your discipline from deep within the oldest parts of your neural circuitry. Because the craving you feel is not about calories. It's about control. It's about comfort. It's about your brain reaching back into its survival archive and saying, last time we felt this way, this lonely, this stressed, this anxious, we didn't die. You know why? Because we had chocolate, we had chips, we numbed it, we survived it. Your brain doesn't want you to be happy. It wants you to be safe. And if overeating got you through pain before, your brain doesn't care about your waistline. It cares about repetition. Repetition means survival. Repetition means predictability. And in the ancient wiring of your brain, predictability means life. You have been conditioned by a society that praises willpower and shames failure. But what they never told you is that willpower is not a character trait. It's a neurochemical state. It's temporary. It's fragile. And the second your brain senses uncertainty, fatigue, or emotional pain, it will override your best intentions with a single, powerful signal. Eat, and when you do, you're not broken, you're not weak, you're just operating from a brain that was built to protect, not perfect. A brain that hasn't evolved nearly as fast as your environment has. You're walking through a modern world with an ancient operating system. And every billboard, every dopamine-dripping commercial, every perfectly engineered snack is hijacking that system to get you to do one thing, react. But you are not your reactions, because here's the beautiful truth. You can rewire that system. You can retrain your brain to recognize the difference between true hunger and emotional craving. You can teach your neurons to fire differently when discomfort arrives, but not through restriction, not through punishment, through awareness, through repetition, through choosing again and again to interrupt the loop that says food is the answer to feeling. Cravings are chemical. They are not moral. And if they are chemical, they are changeable. Every time you say no to a craving, you don't just win a battle, you weaken a neural pathway, you make that craving quieter. And every time you say yes, you strengthen it. Not because you're addicted to sugar, but because your brain is addicted to patterns. Let's go deeper. Inside your brain lives a structure called the basal ganglia. It's your habit machine. It doesn't judge, it doesn't analyze, it automates. It records actions repeated over time and files them away into routines. Wake up, check phone. Get stressed, eat sugar. Feel bored, open the fridge. These aren't decisions, they're default programs, and the basal ganglia is just doing its job, keeping you efficient by outsourcing repeated behavior into unconscious loops. And unless you bring those loops into conscious awareness, you will keep calling them bad habits, when in fact, they're just old codes running unchecked. But awareness is just the beginning. To change a habit, you must replace it, because your brain hates a vacuum. If you simply try to remove the craving response without installing a new behavior in its place, your brain will panic, it will search, it will scramble, and 9 times out of 10, it will default to the familiar, even if the familiar is self-destructive. So what do? We create new loops, we build new rituals, and we do it not just with willpower but with compassion. You must become the scientist of your own brain. Notice when the craving hits, observe the context. Are you tired, anxious, lonely, stressed? Then ask, what does my brain really want right now? Not my mouth, not my tongue, my brain. Does it want control, relief, certainty? Because food is never the answer. It's the mask. You have to be bold enough to feel the thing you're trying to eat your way out of. Sit with the discomfort, not because pain is noble, but because truth lives there. And your body cannot let go of what your brain is still clinging to. There's something else you need to know. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, self-control, and future thinking, it goes offline when you're under stress. That means the moment life gets loud, the moment the pressure builds, your logical brain steps aside and your emotional brain takes the wheel. Now think about how often that happens in a day. Emails, deadlines, parenting, loneliness, comparison, financial anxiety. You spend most of your waking hours in a state of low-grade threat, and you wonder why you can't make the right choices. It's not that you lack discipline, it's that your discipline never had a chance to engage. So fat loss becomes less about what you eat and more about how you regulate. Your nervous system is the gatekeeper. If you're constantly in fight or flight, your body holds on to fat like a shield. Your cortisol rises, your insulin spikes, and no matter how many salads you eat, your system remains in lockdown. But when you soothe your nervous system, through breath, through stillness, through rewiring, your brain begins to open. And when your brain opens, your body follows. This is why you must prioritize inner peace, like your life depends on it, because it does. The body sheds fat when the brain feels safe, not before. So how do you make the brain feel safe? By keeping promises to yourself. Every time you say, I'll walk for 10 minutes, and you actually do it, your brain registers safety. Every time you say, I'll drink water instead of soda, and you follow through, your brain learns that you are in control, not the craving, not the loop. You. This is the language the brain understands. Consistency, predictability, follow through, not perfection. Perfection triggers threat. Perfection says, I must not fail. And the moment you do, your brain spirals into the same old protective behavior, binge, numb, avoid. But if you give yourself permission to make micro changes, one decision, one moment, one breath at a time, you train your brain to associate progress with peace. That's the shift. The path to fat loss is not lined with punishments. It's paved with neural repetition. The more often you choose the new way, the stronger it becomes. And over time, what felt impossible becomes automatic. Because the brain is plastic. It molds, it adapts, it becomes what you repeat. So if you want to lose the weight, stop trying to out-diet your neurology. Stop trying to fight your biology with shame and guilt. Start understanding the map of your mind. Start noticing the signals. Craving is not the enemy. It's the flashlight pointing to where healing is needed most. And let's be clear, fat loss is not just about aesthetics. It's about energy, vitality, mental clarity, hormonal balance. It's about unburdening the body from the inflammation of emotional suppression. It's about becoming the version of you that is not held hostage by a bag of chips or a late-night binge. It's about freedom. But that freedom doesn't begin on your plate. It begins in your patterns. And those patterns, they're written in neurons. But they can be rewritten. You are not stuck. You are simply wired. And wiring can be changed. The moment you stop trying to control your cravings and start decoding them, you shift from being the prisoner of your brain to the programmer. You reclaim your authority, and from that place, fat loss becomes effortless, not because the path is easy, but because the identity behind the path has changed. So, the next time you hear that voice, the one whispering, just one bite, you've had a long day, you deserve it, pause, don't argue, don't resist, just breathe. Ask yourself, is this my hunger or my history? And then choose presence, choose awareness, choose the version of you who isn't afraid to feel, because when you're brave enough to feel what you've been feeding, your brain stops reaching for escape. And when your brain stops reaching for escape, your body finally starts to let go. That's where fat loss begins, not in the body, but in the brain. You've been taught that fat loss starts with a plan, a meal prep schedule, a workout routine, a calorie target. But I want to tell you something nobody told you. None of it will work. None of it, if you don't first change the way you see yourself. Because before you lose a pound, you have to lose the person inside your brain who still believes they can't. Fat doesn't cling to the body the way shame clings to the mind. And what keeps the weight on, what sabotages your progress, what pulls you back every time you're 2 steps forward, isn't food, it's identity. You think fat loss is about what you do. It's not. It's about who you believe you are, because you don't act according to your goals, you act according to your self-procedure. And if the person in your brain still says, I've always struggled, or I always gain it back, or I'm just not one of those disciplined people, then I don't care how many smoothies you drink or how many reps you do, the brain will always pull the body back to match the identity it's married to. That's not philosophy, that's neuroscience. Your self-image lives in a structure called the default mode network. It's the part of the brain that kicks in when you're not doing anything focused, when your mind wanders, when you daydream, when you think about who you are and how you fit into the world. That's the place where your story lives. That's the place that whispers, this is just who I am. And every single time you try to make a change that threatens that story, the brain resists. Because the brain doesn't care about your transformation, it cares about your safety. Familiarity is safety, predictability is safety. Even if it hurts, even if it's killing your confidence, even if it's stealing your life, the brain would rather you stay stuck than risk the unknown. This is why motivation fades. This is why diets collapse. This is why discipline cracks under pressure. Because deep inside the architecture of your identity, there's still a neural loop that says, I'm not the kind of person who wins at this. And until you break that loop, until you burn that story to the ground and write a new one, your progress will always be temporary. You cannot build a new body on an old identity. Let that settle into your bones. Because this is where most people get it wrong. They work so hard on the external, counting, tracking, exercising, but they do nothing to challenge the beliefs driving their behaviors. And beliefs are more powerful than any plan. You have to believe you're capable of change before the change happens. You have to embody that belief before the results show up. Because results don't create identity, identity creates results. So how do you change your self-image? You rehearse it. You rehearse the new version of you so frequently, so emotionally that your brain starts to believe it's real. Visualization is not fantasy. It's rehearsal. And when you rehearse with emotion, the brain doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and what's experienced. You wire new neural pathways through repetition, and you lock them in through emotion. That's neuroplasticity. That's the science of self-creation. And it doesn't start big. It starts in the micro moments. The moment you get out of bed instead of snoozing, you become the person who doesn't negotiate with excuses. The moment you say no to emotional eating and take a walk instead, you become the person who regulates instead of escapes. The moment you pause, breathe, and choose differently, you become the person who leads their brain, not follows it. And every time you do that, every time you make that choice, you build evidence for your new identity. And evidence creates certainty. And certainty fuels momentum, and momentum becomes embodiment. But you can't wait to feel ready. You can't wait until you believe in yourself. Belief is not a prerequisite. Action is. Belief comes after. Belief is what your brain gives you after you prove to it that you're not the same. So prove it. Prove it in the smallest ways. Show up for yourself when it's hard. Speak to yourself like the person you're becoming. Starve the old identity by refusing to give it your energy. Refuse to call yourself lazy. Refuse to repeat the narrative that says you've never been consistent. Because the more you repeat that story, the more your brain obeys it. Every time you speak about yourself, you're giving your brain a blueprint. Make sure it's building the future, not fortifying the past. You see, fat loss is not a punishment. It's not a penance. It's not about shrinking yourself. It's about expanding into the identity that always lived inside you, but was buried under years of false programming, emotional armor, and inherited beliefs. And when you start shedding the weight of that identity, the body follows, because the body is just a mirror. It reflects the choices the brain makes. It responds to the commands your thoughts send it. And the moment those thoughts change from I can't to I will, from I'm broken to I'm rebuilding, your biology starts to shift. Hormones recalibrate, inflammation drops, energy rises, muscle builds, fat releases, because now the brain believes you are safe in your transformation. That's the shift. That's the core of this truth. That loss does not begin when you change your habits. It begins when you change your self-concept. It begins when you step into the future version of you and start living from that place. Not aiming for it, not hoping for it, but being it. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds bold. That sounds unreasonable. But let me tell you, the brain doesn't change with logic. It changes with intensity, with conviction, with frequency. If you want to change your life, you can't speak to yourself with the same voice that broke you. You have to rise. You have to command the brain with clarity, with vision, with truth. And the truth is, you are not too far gone. You are not weak. You are not destined to struggle forever. You are just rehearsing the identity you've known the longest. It's time to rehearse something new. And if you need a place to start, you're not alone. That's why platforms like NeuroPower Talks exist, not for motivation alone, but for remapping the brain, for giving you tools that train your mind to serve your mission, not sabotage it, for helping you live from the inside out, not the outside in. This is not a moment of inspiration, it's a line in the sand, a new agreement between you and your identity. You are done arguing for your limits, you are done waiting to feel ready, you are done shrinking your vision to fit the shape of your past. From this moment forward, you are choosing to lead your brain, not be led by your past. Because fat loss doesn't start in the body. It doesn't start with macros. It doesn't start with workouts. It starts in the brain. It starts with the story you tell yourself when no one's watching. It starts with the version of you that says, I don't chase results, I embody them. So don't wait for the mirror to show you the change. Be the change, build the change, believe in the identity that's already inside you. And when your brain tries to drag you back to old patterns, don't fight it. Just whisper back, that's not who I am anymore. Because from now on, you don't need to lose weight to love yourself. You love yourself enough to lose what no longer belongs. And when that love leads, the body listens. Now go prove it.